And I have.
I'm thinking of tearing down the
what?
the light in the kitchen. There's a kitchen. This is a kitchen, yeah, but it's
It
so
doesn't come. It just take you in the middle, and you look very well. Because last time I recorded you, it looked very well. So. I'm just also by my kitchen, FYI. Yeah. All right. So thank you so much for joining me, sir. First of all, you have been very strong proponent of engaging with the Taliban, and you also say that Norwegian government is also proud that you're talking to them. And how does you feel about it when the Taliban are suppressing and detaining more women activists on daily basis?
Well, I still believe that it was right to invite them to Oslo. It's important to talk about what they're doing and to make them understand that this is not acceptable to us. So, I mean, when you talk, it doesn't mean that you only deliver nice messages, you know. And I think many of those who were here need to hear the voices of the international community. Many of them have not been exposed to international perspectives before. I had not seen any of these people earlier, except for Karzai's former chief of staff. And the group that we have talked to before are different from those that we meet today, and they need also to be exposed to our views, you know, and they can comment and they will present the situation in the country as they see it, particularly on the humanitarian front. And I think that is useful. I see that there has been many negative comments about my Twitters about this from Afghanistan, but that's all right. You know, I understand and I accept that there are different views, but this is my view.
Sir, Prime Minister Imran Khan spoke to CNN, and he's also discussing and saying the world has no alternative rather than to talk and engage with the Taliban. So in your perspective, how far is the Taliban from being recognized by international community?
Oh, that's up to them, really. It's a matter of how we see their practices evolve. But it's a complicated game. You know, we say you must open the schools. And the answer was here, yes, we will open schools by this and that date, you know, after Nowruz. But it's not only a question of the Taliban, and I think there are probably of different views within the Taliban, but it's also a question of money, you know. You need to pay teachers, you need to run schools, etc. You need to have an educational administration in place. That costs money, and it's very, very hard to do all these things without Western money coming into support. It's the same in other branches, you know, within health, etc. And also for the humanitarian purposes, for delivering food, you need somebody to clear the roads, to open the tunnels, to clear the airports, the helipads, etc., etc. And you need to connect with the Afghans, including those who are the current rulers of the country.
So with the money unfrozen, like with the Biden decision, $3.5 billion goes to Afghan people. How do you see the Taliban will be really uphold with their commitments of what they say, as you mentioned, that they are reopening the school for women or practices, other issues? Do you think they will uphold their commitments?
There's no way for me to speculate, but my impression from what I heard was positive. But again, you know, I believe also that we seem to believe that a political party in Europe is a monolithic. We accept that a political party in Europe have many opinions within it. You know, we seem to believe that the Taliban is a monolithic organization. It's not. It has different views. It's hardliners and those who are more moderates. They also have to come to an agreement. So given that, and also the fact that they receive sufficient resources to see to it that the schools can open and run, then I hope that what was said will be implemented.
So Biden's decision to give Afghanistan foreign assets of 3.5 billion to the families of victims of 9/11 triggered a lot of sentiments and reactions by Afghans and international, and I think you also kind of like criticize it. What is wrong with it?
Well, I think to spend money that belongs, in my view, to the Afghan people, to spend them on victims of 9/11 is wrong. The Afghan people was not responsible for what happened 9/11. This was Al-Qaeda plot. And to punish people like the Afghans, I think is morally very difficult to accept. And here you see, as one of my colleagues wrote, the richest country in the world punishing the poorest people in the world. Does it make sense? Over the years, the Afghan people have been robbed by American contractors, subcontractors, and subcontractors. They have been robbed by their own leaders, particularly during the last years, when we could all see that the international community was slowly getting out of Afghanistan. They have been victims of so much. And at one stage, I remember in 2010-11, when you had the surge, as it was called, to supplement the military, the Americans were basically throwing money at impossible projects, millions and millions. And now the Afghan people is to be punished again. I think that is really sinking very low. And I was very upset when I read about this. And it's also, sorry.
Go ahead, sir.
It's also a question of, not Afghan people is the most important here, but for the standing of the United States in the world, the US and President Biden wanted to re-establish the United States as the leading world power, not only militarily, but also with soft power, assistance, etc., diplomatically. And then you see this happening. That provokes reactions all across the world. I mean, it diminishes the United States instead of the opposite.
We spoke to SIGAR, Inspector General John Sopko, and he spoke about investigation that's going about these former Afghan government officials ranking like President Ghani, that they took some money out of took Afghan money. So there was corruption as well, former Afghan government. And at the same time, now we see that some of them are emerging and they want to go back. What's your thoughts about it? Do you think the Taliban will accept them with all whatever happened to Afghanistan?
You mean accept the former? I don't think so. And to be quite honest with you, I think the majority of the population will reject them. They will be seen as having run away instead of staying put, running away in the way they did during the night. I see that the former president Ashraf Ghani claims that he didn't know where he was going or what was happening. I don't believe that's true. It is simply impossible. I think that the president himself did not know well about it or even had planned precisely that himself. I think most of those who left will not be accepted as legitimate leaders anymore.
So let's talk about some of Afghanistan foreign assets in European banks or by European nations, about $2 billion. Do you think the EU will follow similar path to unfreeze Afghanistan foreign assets?
I hope that the European Union will be at the forefront here. A few weeks ago, it was declared by the European Union that they will open the office, the EU office, and probably then have representatives from embassies located there. And now I see also on the humanitarian front how they appear more flexible than the rest of the donor community. And that's a positive sign, and I hope others will follow.
So after 6 months of Taliban ruling, a lot of things, especially for women, didn't change. Even Norway hosted an event with the women. What has to be done more to encourage the Taliban to respect women's rights and human rights?
But in my view, I think a further dialogue is needed, and also I think to engage more on the ground with the Taliban current leadership, I think is important. I know it's a very controversial question, but nevertheless, I believe it is correct. You know, you don't need to talk to your friends. You know, you need to talk to your enemy, and that enemy happens to be in control of the country. Now, does that mean recognition? I mean, it was underlined here in Oslo time and again from all participants countries that this is not recognition, but it is engaging, talking, and I think that is the right way to go. And I hope there will be more of it. As I said, it's important for both sides to be exposed to each other's views and to be able to for us to be able to influence in the positive direction. So even if there are setbacks and there were the arrests of women just lately now, they were arrested by two journalists from Mariana a week ago or so. Now they all seem to be, those I'm talking about seem to be released. That's a positive step, and I hope that it's a sign of a more moderate policy to come. But there are no guarantees. There are no guarantees by talking to anybody. But I think there is one thing I can guarantee, that is, if we don't talk at all, you can be sure that that will increase the influence of the hardliners. And they will say, you see, the West, they don't care. They don't care. We want relations, they don't want relations with us. That will empower, I think, the hardliners more than we want, certainly. And it will not help the Afghan people. I think at the moment, the Afghan people is what should be at the focus of our attention. That's why also I believe that the decision by President Biden is so, but it's hard for me to find the right words. But I think that was a low point.
But you also mentioned there are a lot of negative comments and stuff about your views on engaging with the Taliban. I have a question myself, like what makes you support the Taliban? What kind of action they have taken so far to encourage anybody support the Taliban?
I don't support the Taliban. I'm accused of supporting the Taliban. Yeah, that is far from the truth. But I believe in talking, and I always did. You know, I came into foreign policy when during the worst period of the Cold War, and it helped to talk. You know, finally we had results. It took time, but we had the results that were more than satisfactory. They were almost sensational at the time. What we managed to. Now we're in a much colder international situation again, atmosphere again, and again I repeat, we've got to talk. We've got to talk. We cannot accept what's happening today on the Ukrainian border from the Russian side, but we must talk about it. The alternative is much worse, and I must say I'm very concerned for every day going with the temperature of the rhetorics going up and up and up and up, and in the end we end up with a disaster. So I think talking and not shouting, but talking is a useful tool that seems for the moment not to be appreciated in the way it should.
Sounds great. Thank you so much. It was just Sorry, I had to bring